keep your cameras on as much as you can. If that'd be wonderful. It's a better interaction. And also, use the technology, raising your hand if you'd like to ask a question, make a comment upon different things, and we'll follow those protocols. And also, uh, stay within the confines of running a good meeting. And now we will do the board roll call. And thank you, Teresa, for sending me the roll call. And let's do the roll call right now. And that is Mr. Dale Anderson. Just call. It's going to be an hour late to the meeting. Manuel Navarro,
Present.
Teresa Atkinson.
Here.
Peter Morgan is going to be late. He is on the road and trying to get to his destination. Ray Eichenmeyer. Oh, he has no permission slip and he's not here. Okay, we'll give him some grace. Carlene Anders. Also not here yet. Linda McKay is absent. She is not going to be with us today. Lori Bergman. Not here today. I'm here, and I'm not late this time. That's a good thing. Ruben Betancourt.
Here.
Thank you. Nikki Lewis.
I am here.
Thank you. Ryan Berryman.
Here.
Dylan Spradlin.
Here.
Megan Francis. She's not with us today. Rena Schauber. Okay. Jody DiCasari. And Melody Johnston.
I'm here.
Thank you. All right, that does give us a 9.
Did I give, sorry, do you have Ben on your list? Maybe I didn't have him on the list I sent you.
Ben,
Ben,
thank
Ben
you.
Schultz. Yeah.
I missed it. I went straight to the
Okay.
color thing. Ben Schulze.
I'm here.
Sorry about that, Benjamin. So, well, thank you, everybody. And I'm assuming, Teresa, that you took the score, right? And is there any declarations of conflicts for this meeting from any of the board members? Okay, hearing none. I need a motion to approve our consent agenda. Be aware that in the consent agenda, it has we are approving the minutes for April meeting, the monthly financial report, and North Central Washington Library contract that was emailed to the board separately. Do I hear a motion?
This is Manuel, so moved.
Second? Do I hear a second?
This is
Dylan, I
Nikki.
second.
Oh.
Or no, Nikki can second.
Either way works.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, the motion is approved. Any discussion? Comments, questions? All right. If I'm going a little quick, just unmute yourself and say something. All right. Okay, motion married, and it was second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. Do we only have 4 ayes, or are we doing it in the notes?
Aye.
Ray, we are voting on the consent agenda, the minutes for April, the monthly financial report, and the library contract. Comments, questions? Approved? Okay. Any abstentions? Any nays? All right, the motion carries. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Is there, with the consent agenda approved, we're going to go to, to Peter from our CPA from CLA. Will do a presentation on our investment portfolio for our annual report. Peter?
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be in front of this group. Yeah, I know I think we got 30 minutes on the agenda, and I'm going to do my best to keep my comments to 8-10 minutes, and want to make sure this meeting is for you all. Any questions or discussion we want to have together, and then I know you got a packed agenda, so we'll keep things moving. I'm going to try to share my screen. All right, is that coming through okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
With here.
So I'm going to do my best to monitor the chat, but I'll pause for questions throughout as well. And if anybody else is monitoring the chat, feel free to just shout the questions out because I might be a little distracted. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes on where things are at in the markets year to date. And, I guess, and going a little bit farther back. I like to call this the quilt chart. So it's really busy, but it's the state of any given year. What are the asset class, what are the performance, what are the returns for all the different areas of the market you can invest in? International stocks, US large company stocks, US small company stocks, bonds, real estate, etc. And I know our portfolio, only really has US Treasury securities, but I like to give kind of the lay of the land to put everything in context. So it's been a rocky but strong start to the year for the stock market, especially the emerging market stock market. So think China, think South America, think faster growing, maybe formerly underdeveloped economies. And a lot of that has to do with the commodity boom. So commodities, you can see, are the second box from the top. Not only, unfortunately, I guess, doing well with oil inflation and some of the results of the conflict in the Middle East, but also precious metals and just about everything, right? Prices are going up. We all feel it. Definitely want to spend some time on that. That's kind of the real reason I bring a lot of this up. And then where we sit, we're probably somewhere what I would quantify our portfolio in between fixed income and cash. We're shorter term fixed income. This is more full duration fixed income, but it hasn't been as strong of a year in fixed income for that very reason, the inflation. So as inflation expectations have risen, and now we're starting to get data that shows inflation is indeed coming in higher as expected, that puts upward pressure on interest rates. Investors want to at least, keep up with inflation, if not earn a little bit more. So if investors think inflation is going to be higher, they're going to demand a higher return on their bonds to keep up with inflation, making interest rates go up, all else equal. And current bond prices and interest rates have that inverse relationship. So as rates on new bonds are going up, that puts downward pressure on current bonds, simply because if you had something that was yielding 2% that someone can now buy on the market on a new issuance, the exact same type of security, exact same risk, exact same maturity for 3%, someone's not going to be willing to pay you par or that 100 cents on the dollar for your 2%. They're going to ask for a slight discount to make up for the less yield that they would be making. So that's kind of the backdrop. This is another way of looking at interest rates. And so since our treasury ladder is 18 months, 1 month, 1 to 18 month treasury ladder, we're close. Our returns are heavily impacted by what the Federal Reserve decides to do with their federal funds rate. And so if we had this meeting 6 months ago, the projection would have said the rate is at 3.5 today and look for it to go closer to 3 by the end of the year. Not only have those cuts expectations gone away, but actually now the bias is higher. So the market is expecting the Federal Reserve might actually increase their benchmark interest rate between now and the end of the year for the same reasons we've already been talking about, higher expected inflation, to try to combat inflation. So this is just both the Federal Reserve estimates themselves as well as what the market is thinking that rate is going to be. What that means for our portfolio is probably higher yields, higher returns than I would have projected at the beginning of the year, again, based on where current yields are as we recycle those bonds, right? Every month we have a bond maturing, and unless John and his team say we need some of that money or all of that money, we go and invest it 18 months out to kind of keep the ladder intact. So we eventually, as rates go up, we will be recycling into higher interest rate bills, I should say. This is another way of saying the same thing. Now we're looking at, this is a 10-year treasury, so it's more for an example. We don't have anything with that long of a maturity. But just to recall, for those of you who maybe weren't around, 2021 and 2022 when inflation was really picking up. So we have something called a nominal yield, and that's just the yield you get. And then we have something called a real yield, and that's really the yield you keep after inflation. So you take the nominal yield, subtract what inflation is, and that's your real yield. So that's kind of, think about your purchasing power. If you're making 3% on your bonds, but inflation is running at 9%, well, technically your $100 turned into $103 a year later. But now to buy what used to take $100 to buy, it takes $109 to buy. So you're nominally in a better spot, but purchasing power went down. That's what this gray line represents. And we had a really funky time, when inflation was really going back in 2022 and 2023, where our real yields were negative, meaning, yes, we were earning a positive return, but inflation was outpacing the yield we were making. Again, this is on a 10-year treasury. We're kind of back to a more normal environment to where there's not only are we making a nice yield, but we're actually earning a yield in excess of what that inflation expectation is. And even with this, spurt of maybe a little bit higher than expected inflation due to the conflict in the Middle East, we still have a positive expectation for real yields or after inflation returns. Talking a lot about interest rates, it's really highly relevant, right, to what our portfolio is doing. And so here's what we call a yield curve. And it's simply for a US Treasury that's 3-month, 1 year, 2 year, 10 years, all the way out to 30 years. What are those given issuances yielding at a certain point in time? And generally speaking, an upward sloping line, the longer you lock your money up, so to speak, the higher return you expect. So in a normal environment, this line is upward sloping as it is. But you can see at the start of the year where yields were and now where yields are now in this darker blue line. And that's really, again, hitting on the same themes, higher than expected inflation, almost all caused from the conflict in the Middle East. Investors are baking that into their, requirements now and saying we need higher returns to make up for what's going to be higher inflation than we thought it was going to be. Another important note, I included this slide, is here's just taking the temperature of what the market thinks yields might be a year from now in these same instruments. So it's actually a bias towards higher rather than a bias towards lower, where it would have been even just 3 months ago before the war started. But taking the long view, at the end of the day, our fixed income portfolio is really highly tied to where are interest rates when you start to deploy your portfolio. Yes, there is some noise, some market appreciation and depreciation in between, but you can see bond returns are highly correlated to what your starting yield is. So if your starting yield, like I said, this is a full maturity, so not quite, this is more of that fixed income. We're a little bit shorter. Our bonds aren't quite, this is more maturities of bonds 5-6 years out. Ours are, 1 month to 18 months, but it's a similar idea of if our yield is 4.7 when we start, over the next 5 years, you look back, what is our return going to be? It's pretty much what your yield is at the start. And it makes intuitive sense. But not too long ago, you can see the 2020s, starting down here again with those really low interest rates coming out of COVID, really impacted the end return. I'm going to now skip ahead to our portfolio, right? And so asset allocation, kind of a boring chart. It's mostly, it's all our treasury ladder and cash equivalents. You can see I included all of last year as a guide. So in 2025, the portfolio return just north of 4%. This is after all fees. This is like the true return. So kind of as we would expect with what the yields were. And then so far year to date, we're up just over a little bit over 1%. Running a little bit less than last year due to, ironically, yields going up means it puts a little pressure on our bond prices in the interim until we can recycle those maturities into the higher rates. But we would expect our rate of return to be, end the year about 3.5 or 4%. Historically, again, what have we done historically? Right in that neighborhood, right? 3.5 to 4% as you look out over 1, 3, and 5 year rolling periods of time. And then just here's all the information you could ever want. I'm not going to go through it other than to say at the very bottom, I think this is important. Here's the value of the portfolio today, right? 23.1 million. And that generates about 825,000 of annual income at current interest rates. And so with interest rates ticking up a little bit, this number, again, given if the portfolio value stays similar, the annual income might actually tick up over the next, ensuing months. That's kind of my prepared remarks. I'd love to go deeper wherever anyone wants to go or address any questions anybody might have. I want to look through the chat to see if I missed anything. Thank you, John, for that.
Peter, I got a question. What is the rate of return for a high yield savings account versus a bond?
Yeah, great question. So as we look out, and now, banks can vary, right? So like a high yield savings account that, you have exit banks generally, right? So what they do is they take their funds and they lend it or they park it at the Fed and they get that overnight rate. And then they take some spread for themselves and they pay out a little bit less than that. I will say that's the rule of thumb, right? Your general experience with banks can vary. If your bank is hot after your business, because you have a lot of debt with them and you do a lot of other, they might pay you a higher rate. If you don't do other things with them, they might pay you a lower rate. So individual results can vary. I would say your rate is generally going to be, I would say the average savings account right now, I update this every month for a slide, is about 1.5%. A high yield account, maybe closer to 3%. But then you do run into FDIC limits. You want to be cognizant too of 250,000, right, of guarantee per financial institution versus these treasuries are all fully guaranteed, luckily with no limit. But good question.
Peter, could I ask that similar question for money market accounts? And what's kind of like the risk reward between those three different kinds?
Yeah. So money market it's a great question. So a savings account is a deposit, counts as like a deposit at the bank. A money market is kind of like outside the bank's capital requirements. So there can be money market still, though, is kind of a catch-all term. So there can be a money market account at a bank, which could be, generally speaking, a money market account. Everything inside of that money market fund matures in 90 days or less. So very short term. It can be just treasuries, right? A treasury only money market. There can be some what they call commercial paper. It's basically corporate debt. There can be some there's going to be some government agency debt in these. So what's under the hood of a money market is not equal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But like Schwab has a treasury only money market fund, which is, what I like to use. That yields 3.35 right now, or 3.5 if you have $1 million. That's it's a lower expenses. It's essentially what that federal funds rate is on a slight lag, because again, they have 90-day maturities in there, 90 days and less. So think of it as like you could almost view it in this case as like the 0 month. So we have, our next one matures next week, June 15th, July, August, September. You could almost view a money market as like it matures every day. You can pull the proceeds any day the market's open on demand. But of course, the flip side of that is the rate varies with what's going on in the market versus these were locked into the rate of when we purchased it. So a little bit different, but very similar concept.
Great. Any other questions for Peter? Well, thank you, Peter, for showing us what the money's doing.
I mean,
Sarah?
one comment, and I don't know if Sarah has one too. I just wanted to note for everyone, because I know the finance committee presented some of our financial projections through about 2030. So our plan is to spend down this investment account to right around $10 million over a number of years. And that's currently actively happening. So as Peter said, when that note comes due June 15th, we'll pull a portion of that down into our bank account to utilize for operating expenses, and we'll reinvest what we don't need. And we'll do that pretty much on a monthly basis. So over the next 3 years, we have a plan to spend down of that account to get to about $10 million. And that's really been in a discussion of trying to figure out what that adequate amount is to keep in investments. Sarah, I don't know what else you wanted to jump in on.
Well, I just wanted to say everything you just said. So I don't have anything anymore.
Sorry.
Thanks for stealing.
No worries.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other comments or questions for Peter on this presentation? Well, thank you so much, Peter, for this presentation. And with that said, I just want to make
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
I just wanted to, in the excitement of sharing this meeting for Linda, in the intro, I neglected to ask for any public comment in this meeting. Is there anybody in this meeting who would like to make a public comment? Oh, you were right. All right. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll get back on schedule here. Sarah, who is going to, no, wait a minute.
Yep.
Yeah, you are. I thought financial update. Sarah Krosky, the removal of board designated net asset restrictions. There's a board motion attached to this. Remember that. Go ahead.
So there is a board, and this has to do with when we first organized, we set some waiver $1 aside. And we did this for the purpose of getting off the ground and maintaining, at the time, core programs and strategies that were at the time.
Sarah, you're breaking up, so you might want to go off camera.
Sarah, you need to turn off your camera or reconnect because you're breaking up quite a bit. If you have her phone, somebody text her, let her know.
I'm trying to send her a message. I see her back now and she can move, but Sarah, can you hear us?
Can you hear? Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm sorry, I'm proposing we do is that we remove these restrictions so we can analyze and then position ourselves under the new strategic plan with other priorities. And so what that means is I can't remember how I call for a vote. but I am asking for a vote to remove the board designated restrictions. Could you guys hear me okay?
A little bit. You were breaking up here and there, but I think we got the bulk of it. And just kind of, I'll add additionally, and I think Sarah added this, is that we had board designated restrictions specific to different programs. Some of those programs have kind of ran their term, or we've just shifted into other funding mechanisms and work, especially as Sarah said, with more of our long-range financial planning. So they're not needed anymore. And really, this is to clean up the books and make sure that we don't need them on the books. And so just with the board motion, remove all those designations. And I saw you were coming off mute.
So let me see if I understand what the motion is here. You basically, which is on page 36 and 37. If you want to, look at the detail of it. And it's basically, we did approve this budget, and back in December, correct? The one
Yes.
that proposed that we do this type of spend down. So this is sort of a follow-up to allow for that budget that we approved to be implemented, correct?
Yes, it's part of that strategy.
Okay.
There was a number of years ago, Emilio, that we did allocate funds specific to different programs, and we did spend according to those, but those programs have either passed, and we just didn't expend all the funds, or we've taken a different strategy, as Sarah said. And so having those designations don't provide any continual value to the organization.
Wonderful. Anybody have any comments or questions on this motion? All right, with that said, the motion is to approve removing existing board designated net asset restrictions in order to realign financial resources with the organization's current strategic direction and its transitions beyond waiver related work. So all those in favor, say aye, or put it in the chat. Aye.
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 So if we had a few more of those.
Can I quickly pull back, because if we get a motion in a second?
I motion to move forward. This is Ruben.
Perfect.
I'll second that.
Sorry, Emilio.
No, that's fine.
Sorry, who was the second?
Ben Schultz.
So I thought since a board action was required, I thought that was the motion. I go by Roberta's rules of order, man. I'm getting reacquainted with Robert's rules of order. Robert's a little bit more procedurally oriented. Okay, all those in favor with that motion in a second? All those in favor of approving this, okay? Indicate with a thumb. Okay. All those against this motion? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. It's approved. Wonderful. All right. Anything else on this subject?
I'm just going to note that and it will be in the minutes, but in the chat, Rena abstained because she missed the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, the financial update. Anything else you'd like to add, Sarah? Or
No, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Can I just add, just for some awareness, so Peter works with CLA under Wealth Advisory, and we have an agreement with them that is separate from our agreement that we have with CLA for CFO, accounting, and bookkeeping. So they separate out the work that Sarah does with us for the work they do in Wealth Advisory. And just as an FYI, he didn't say it, but Peter also is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so he was calling in from Central Time. So just a heads up about where he's located as well.
thank you. Does that mean he's going to be tired?
I mean, really, it's only 2 hours, so he's still technically in his work day, and we got him out early, so he should be happy.
Okay, excellent. Well, we're a little bit ahead of schedule here. Do you want to go first, John, or so we can wait for Peter, or would you
Yep.
like to?
I'm
All right.
happy to. Manuel, you came off mute.
No, I just realized I was on mute. I can go back on either way.
Go ahead and make sure you don't have anything to say. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up my ED report. So if you guys are okay, we will shift since we're waiting for Peter to join. He should be on here soon. And I will jump into my executive director report.
Page 38 and 39. Thank you, John, for being so accommodating.
No problem. You just gotta give me 1 second so I know what I'm doing here. Do you guys see anything?
No, we just see a lot of.
All right. I think
There
I
you
got.
go.
All right. Thank you all and happy June. I'm going to jump in with the executive director report. I am shifting a little bit, so bear with me while I do the shift real quickly. So today, really, just to highlight a few things, most of this report's going to have a little bit more of a statewide context for updates, so you'll see that throughout the report. There is also a motion that I have in my executive director report that is tied to an application we'd like to apply for funding for, so I just want to call that out. Also, there is a request for board members to get involved specifically around developing metrics for our board and organization, so that I'll just call that out as well and give us time to chat about that when we get there. But two things to watch out for as a whole. Again, just always putting this up here to focus on our mission and vision. As we're doing our work, we're really trying to continue to recenter and refocus our mission at the top of everything we do. We're also really trying to put focus on our strategic priorities. And just as a heads up for you all, we are actually finalizing our annual report and finishing that with the goal of hopefully getting that done early this month. One of the things that's taken a little bit longer is we've really been working to align our annual report more so with our strategic priorities so that the report flows and emphasizes and explains how we are doing that work. We've also been working with AI consultant Eddie and Nick through Eddie to start learning how we might be able to pull data and information out of our reports that we can then infuse into our annual report. So a few things we're trying out that is new this year that's causing us to take a little bit more time to get that report produced, but we are getting to the final stretches of that. Statewide, some things to call out really. Again, we really have two primary initiatives in the work we do is the 1115 waiver, the work we do under the Vital Conditions Network. I just really wanted to call out that there's a lot of conversation statewide going around both the Vital Conditions framework as well as the frameworks and discussions around belonging. And so Wendy and I last week had an opportunity to go over to Seattle on Friday and work with a group that's called the Belonging Table, which we are now part of, to start looking at how we work collectively together to promote creating Washington as a state of belonging. We are utilizing frameworks through the Other and Belonging Institute in California, as well as work in partnership with Ripple Foundation around belonging within the Vital Conditions framework. And so this is, I want to say this is still feeling very grassroots and at its early phase. And it's about a group of 6 or 7 organizations that are really looking at how we lean into this work. Our tie statewide is still the Economic Justice Alliance, which is through DSHS. And they're looking at how this work ties to their ultimate goal around the 10-year poverty reduction work, as well as this has been an agency that's been looking at how they embed and lean into the vital conditions as a statewide agency. The other localized content I would bring that some of these discussions have come to more locally is that with Monty, only 7 seconds, we've had some conversations with the Equity Alliance. We've been starting to talk about what would it look like to spend more time or focus time on the concept of belonging in North Central Washington, and what would collective effort in our region look like around that. That is really still in the preliminary discussions, but we're going to continue to hope to see what that can look like or grow into in North Central Washington. This also ties to, there's been some efforts of bringing Braver Angels into North Central Washington, and Braver Angels is really an organization a little bit more on the political side, but focused on bringing people from different political views and sides together to have a debate, really looking at how do you bridge the divide between individuals on specific topics to come up with commonality. And so continuing to have discussions on, is there anything we can do to support and enhance that kind of work in North Central Washington? We are, and as I told one individual, we really focus on our role as a neutral entity. And so we really want to make sure that we still operate in that space. And so we want to support these concepts and these ideas, but we want to always ensure that we're still playing to our role as a convener and a neutral supporter. Specific and really more tied to the 1115 waiver work and community care hub work is conversations around how the state is going to implement work around the HR 1 bill at the federal level. So as you all know, or have probably heard to some degree, is that Medicaid eligibility requirements are going to be changing as of January 1 for any of the Medicaid expansion population. So this will be the work requirements for people who do not meet an exemption, as well as potentially volunteer requirements associated with this, and the need to redetermine Medicaid eligibility every 6 months. So the state has estimated about 620,000 residents will be impacted, with really looking at least about 160,000 at risk of losing coverage. Statewide, they're trying to figure out how most of this can be automated to look at who is already working and can they pull that state information to verify work requirement eligibility, who holds an exemption, and can they document that electronically for that exemption, and then how do they work with local partners to fill the gaps on both of those when that comes up. So the coalition of ACHs have been really working together to figure out how we can leverage both our networks as an ACH and our networks as community care hubs, social care networks, to support getting the word out and making sure people get connected with individuals who are doing this enrollment and redetermination efforts. So our coalition has really come up with 5 key strategies we are looking and having conversations with the healthcare authority on where we can provide support. So that includes coordinated messaging and communications, where we can provide training and capacity building to partners in our region, both to understand some of these requirements, but also if we need to train up additional individuals or support training additional individuals to become navigators or assisters, and directly working with people to enroll, to get them through work requirement and other enrollment requirements for Medicaid. Where can we see targeted community outreach efforts, and can we support them in figuring out where some of those targets we can be most effective in our region? I talked about the application and navigator assistance. And then there is this conversation around volunteer and employment pathways, and where is there a way that ACHs can support identifying areas of volunteer engagement in their regions, because that is also one thing an individual can count as part of their work requirement. So individuals will need 80 hours a month of work and or volunteer hours to document that they meet that work requirement. And is there a way that we can support providing some coordinated efforts around that volunteer piece of it. There is, and for those of you who are actively involved in these conversations, there's still a number of questions around what this may look like and or what those documentation requirements will look like. And so I think this is going to be kind of a continual evolution and discussion around where we can really provide some of that work. I would say right now, at the ACH level and the community care hub level, we still see that navigator and HCA assister role that is already in place through the Health Benefit Exchange and Healthcare Authority, and probably a number of our clinical partners are going to be the people who are doing the actual support and enrollment and work requirements. And then our efforts are really to see how we bolster those if needed in our region, and then how we ensure when we find people who are struggling with Medicaid eligibility, that we get them connected to the right resources. I'll stop for a second. Any questions on any of that? I think the only other thing I'd note is we expect a lot of this probably to ramp up with the start date in January. A lot of this education outreach is going to really ramp up in the fall to get people prepared for this. Another state agency we are working with is the Washington State Department of Agriculture. And so we have engaged them in some work to support their food security assessment across Washington State and for us in North Central Washington. This has also been something that's come through our coalition of ACHs. And through that coalition, the WSDA has done a small contract down to each of the accountable communities of health in the state of Washington to support engagement in their food security and food assistance program surveying and the outreach efforts. In our region, they are also closely connected to Blue Sky Mines, which is Maria Hines, who leads our regional food council work, as well as support the establishment of more hyperlocal food councils. And so we've been in a number of conversations with Maria on how we both partner through this work with WSDA and the food councils to get the information that they need, how we can use some of this work to bolster the work of the food councils, and then what role can Thriving Together ultimately play in this work. So it's at this point in time, it's been a pretty small contract in the realm of contracting, about $20,000. But as a whole, this has been a test with WSDA and the coalition of ACHs to figure out what kind of working relationships we can have and what other partnerships we can have in the future. This just lists some of the key activities that we are engaging with them and some of the expected outcomes. And I told Emilio to make sure I stay on time. So if I go over, Emilio, you need to let me know.
I'm letting you have some time because we're a little bit ahead. So keep going.
All right.
Hey, John, I do have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So this WSDA food security, and you're talking about regional food councils. I'm kind of looking at RYE too. Just what is the local role in this when some of us are locally prioritizing this through our CHIs?
I hope you guys are all directly involved when this gets kicked off. So I think we started with Maria in the conversation on the regional food council at that piece.
Okay.
And then we would then, I know, and Ryan, I was assuming that she's also been working and been interconnected with the local food councils, correct? Or am I assuming that's wrong? Is my assumption wrong?
You're assuming that Maria is connected with the local food councils. I haven't been attending those meetings because I facilitate transportation. But I could, Teresa, do you know?
I don't. That's why the health district is lead on the food insecurity initiative on the CHIP. I mean, I certainly could find out. Just want to make sure we're coordinating and we're working smarter together and not kind of
I know that the like Grant County Food Council interacts with the regional food council, but I don't know if it's flowing back the other way. So at least there's the one way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so new. We're just starting this initiative. So from that vantage point, I think it's timely.
And Wendy, I saw you come off camera, and I know you've been having conversations with Maria, so you might know a little bit more.
Yeah, Meg is actually one leading the work in our organization, and I'm supporting her. And we did reach out to all of our CHI leads as well as Maria Hines to understand what is going on. So, yes, Teresa, we had planned on leveraging the work that we're already doing to help the WSDA, not create more work per se.
Mm-hmm.
And Teresa, I connected them. I connected Meg directly with Alice and Monica, so they should be in the loop on that as well.
Rena, I see you on the call, so I am assuming at some point in time, Community Action Council will also get looped into this. So just assume you'll be connected at some point in time.
Yeah, well, we helped Maria get started on this whole thing, and one of the well, if I would suggest that you get a really specific scope of work.
We're getting for the contract, we're getting pretty narrowed down on it. And to be honest, because you know, and WSDA has been a great partner, but because of it being a state agency, they were expecting to start this work in January, and we haven't signed the contract yet. So it is just part of the process that things have been delayed. So we're not actually in a contract with them yet, but we're finalizing some of that scope of work, and we just sent it to them.
I mean, are you working with Kim Eads at WSDA?
With who?
Kim Eads.
Why can't I remember last?
Well, she's the, their head of food insecurity, food assistance programs.
I know it's an Andrea Letzow and like Katie, and I can't remember Katie's last name off the top of my mind. So Kim does not, that's where I was trying to remember in my head. Kim doesn't ring a bell. If you have that contact and you want to send it to me, I can confirm that and we can connect offline. Few other quick updates, and we have launched the closed application process for our legislative advocacy fellowship. And I gotta ask you guys, does the top share your screen bar block the wording at top, or do you see the number of applicants listed? I see head shaking.
22, yeah.
Okay, thank you, because I can't see that on my screen. Just the way that the share screen shows. So we had 22 applicants, pretty spaced across the regions, about 6 and 9, based on county. Our ultimate goal was really to have at least 5 to 6 in each county, so that's really good to know. And there is going to be some county specifics involved in final selection. Those individuals have been going through interviews, and then we were working in partnership with the Coalitions for Health Improvement to do some of that final review and selection with a start date of that occurring in July. You'll see on the screen just what that legislative advocacy fellowship is going to look like. I get there's a lot of information on there, and if you have a small screen, it might be hard to see. I can also send this out, but ultimately, it's going to be a monthly meeting focused on different aspects of policy and advocacy, with a primary focus on statewide advocacy, in preparation to get people to understand how they can develop different policy issues they can bring to Olympia. One of the asks I have in place for this is that we are, for year 2 of this process, we are looking for funding. So this is a pilot program this year that we are funding, but we have an opportunity to apply for funding through the Doyle Foundation to do a second year of this after we get through that pilot. One of the things that the foundation requires is board approval for us to apply for the funding. I'm new at this, so I'm not 100% sure why, and Kristen's been working with Nick from Eddie on this. So I don't know, Kristen, if they gave a specific justification on why we are required for board approval. or if it's just a requirement to
It's
fulfill.
just a unique requirement. They just need to see in the minutes that the board has approved the application. And so it's not even related to an amount. My understanding is it's so that the board is aware that we're pursuing this, that we'll be applying for it.
Okay, so
go ahead, Emilio.
So then you did a board motion form for this, and it's in page 38, 39. If people want to look at this, and now I know that we need are you ready for us to to make a motion?
I will make a motion. This is Ray.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Rena.
Thank you, Rena. Okay, any discussion?
The only thing I would note too is this doesn't, the application doesn't commit us to anything. It's just an application. So it's just awareness of the plan, which I know you're all aware of, but I just wanted to articulate that.
Any other comments, questions, discussion on this motion? All right. When nothing else heard, all those in favor indicate by a thumbs up or hand up or a resounding yes. Any denials of this motion? None heard. Any abstentions? I'm trying to keep an eye on the notes here. I don't see any new note. Okay. Motion carries. Approved. Thank you, John.
Perfect.
Okay, we'll go after it. Keep you posted.
Anything else?
I'll keep running through two other quick funding updates. The USDA Distance Learning Thomas and grant is open. We are finalizing some of the work we've continued to do over the years, but now our final work is associated with the libraries, which includes the contract you all approved and the consent agenda. And so we're going to be utilizing some of that funding to continue to fund digital access points in the libraries across North Central Washington. And we are going to be applying for that grant when it closes, which closes June 30th. We applied 2 or 3 years ago with a much broader scope of funding, and we were about like 1.5 points off from the cutoff for application. So we have a lot of hopes that we can clean up our application. This is a much more smaller scope this year, and that we still have a competitive application for it. And then the third, the Okanagan Chai has been in conversations with the FAST Fund to get funding to support youth advocacy. This would actually give them some ability to form a youth advocacy cohort in Okanagan County and hire someone to help facilitate that youth advocacy cohort. They're looking around $300,000 to $350,000, 370 potentially even. And I'm bringing that up now because if that gets approved, that funding amount in that contract would be above the 250,000 level for our board approval. And we fiscally sponsor the Okanagan Coalition for Health Improvement, which means they show up as a program under our board. And so therefore we would be sending this out for board approval if they get a contract at that amount. If it's under the 250,000, we can still proceed forward without board approval, but I wanted to make sure you were all aware of that. This doesn't sound like it's going to be a competitive grant application process, but it's a foundation that they're working with that's looking for specific programs in specific regions that they'd like to fund. Kelly Edward has been in discussions with them around this, and we've been in discussions with her so that she understands what some of the financial implications it would have for our organization as a fiscal sponsor. And then my other ask is we have started doing work around org evaluation planning. And so we are working with Janet Gordon from the Gordon Group to start building out an evaluation plan and metrics for thriving together. Really to look at how we define core organization level evaluation questions rooted in our vital conditions and strategic planning framework, how we use our aspects around collective impact and convening, and how we start looking at how we measuring that value, with the hopes that we then can really roll this up into organizational metrics for the board to see and for us to report on, so that we can continue to report to the board what we're making success on, so we can start doing a good program evaluation, that any program that we are supporting, whether it's doing great work or not, is hitting the targets that we want to achieve as an organization. So one of the things we would like to do as part of this, so that we have board engagement and really understanding and looking at what we want to measure as an organization, is we want a few board members to be part of a few focus groups to start discussing what the board is looking for around evaluation and planning and metrics, and help guide really the end development of this evaluation plan and framework. So a request I have for you all today is if we have any board members who would be interested in being part of that. If you're excited and you want to jump up and say yes, you can do so now. If you need more information, we can continue to connect. If you're a heck no, I guess you can stay quiet.
I'm interested. I would like my name on the list, please.
I got Dylan.
Any others? All right, well, consider it and then send John an email, or John will be getting a hold of you.
Just expect an email, especially if I think you'd be a great fit. Expect an email from me sometime this week.
Ruben is also interested. He put in the chat.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ruben. Dylan, Ruben. We need one more. So expect John's email. Thank you, John. Anything else? Are you good?
Just two other quick additional updates. Just as an FYI, some of the work we've been doing with the Okanagan hospitals around rural health redesign. We are going to be on a Board of Health meeting tomorrow. Some questions have come up about that work, and we've agreed to be on there to ask or answer any questions around the processes that we've supported the hospitals on. That's really just awareness, because some of those discussions up in Okanagan County have had some tensions around them, and I just want you all to be aware of anything that we might engage in that has some differing community tensions. And then as part of our 1115 waiver work, we've needed an increased capacity. Healthcare Authority has a number of additional requests on the work that we have been doing and the reporting requirements around this waiver. And so we have posted a program manager position to help Caroline manage a number of those contracts and those programmatic requests through the 1115 waiver. Our assumption, and what we're going to let individuals know, is that right now funding for this work is really through June of 2028. So we won't be able to guarantee for a long-term position for this. With this work, at least for the next 2 years.
There's Peter right on time.
I feel like I timed this perfectly, Emilio. Or
you did. You did. Thank you so much, John.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, with that said, we will go right into the next report, which is Vital Conditions Network Update with Mr. Peter Morgan, all the way from Minnesota, and Wendy Bresning.
It's the other way around. It's Wendy Bresney, and I'm the color commentary.
I know. I was trying to make it look good.
Well, that's a full-time job.
You have the floor, Wendy.
Thank you. Just confirming you guys can see my screen. I'm going to go full screen. It all rearranges on me. So
yes.
One more thing, because I want to drop a link shortly. So we just wanted to give you an update on what's going on with the Vital Conditions Network. As John said earlier, two of the three strategic priorities are around the Vital Conditions framework leveraging the vital conditions framework to enhance and inspire local and regional action, and strengthening belonging and civic muscle. So we want to give you an update and have some conversation on next steps. So quickly, here's a snapshot of where we're at. We have about 117 organizations as of, I'll say last week. There may have been some that have joined since I pulled that number. Within the region, we continue to grow the number of organizations and the number of individual partners that are engaged in this work. As you can see that we have 145 named partners and 136 are affiliated with an organization. So that leaves 9 that are individuals who've joined our network who believe in what we're doing, have signed on, yet aren't necessarily affiliated with a network, but they're involved in their CHIs and the local coalitions. We are distributed across the region. We do need to do some work in Grant County as there's only about 21 organizations that have signed up in that. Veronica is starting to have some one-on-one meetings with our partners to really understand the sector representation. So we can't give much information on that, but the growth is encouraging. What's most important is that we're building community of the people committed to improving these conditions, and that allows everyone to thrive. So as this network has grown, we've also begun to understand where partners see themselves contributing to the vital conditions framework. So you can see on this graph, pi may not have been the most appropriate graph, but it's what I used in the moment. Just because it's really not about 100%. It's about 117 organizations and how many have self-identified which vital condition they're working in the sense of they can be working in more than one vital condition. So 97, for example, organizations identify with, say they're working with the belonging and civic muscle of the 117, whereas 20 of the 117 say they're working in reliable transportation. This gives us that initial picture where energy and activity already exist. And what's also is encouraging is we see how organizations are working across all of the vital conditions. Let me get to my. So once we know that where the organizations are working is helpful, but the next step is really understanding what they are doing. As I stated earlier, we're in the process of better understanding the strategies, initiatives, and strengths that organizations bring to the work. We're really wanting to know what they're working on as it pertains to each of the vital conditions that they've identified, understanding where their common challenges are, where are opportunities for collaboration, how can we connect organizations they may not realize they're connecting, also that we can create that greater impact working together. This is what we're saying is strengthening the fabric of this network in a region. One of the ways we've already started strengthening those connections is through shared learning. We really are wanting to build relationship through shared learning. So we've looked at where are opportunities, things that we're already doing where we can do it. One thing that we're really excited about is the willingness of partners to really openly share their work and their challenges and their successes. Sometimes we'll talk about the work and all the rainbows and butterflies and not really want to talk about the challenges, but they are digging deep and talking about challenges. And this is really building trust and relationship among partners. So we have the 4 CHI leads, or the 3 CHI leads and Veronica, so 4 total, have been meeting quarterly. Really just this open space facilitation of what do you want to talk about today. So they co-create their agenda and they all give updates on what's working, what's not working, where they're at and where they're going, and have found that to be quite valuable. We are also brought down, as opposed to taking the 18 vital condition grant recipients and doing one-on-one conversations with them about ensuring that they're moving their work forward and understanding their successes and challenges, we decided to bring the cohort together to do peer learning amongst them. And they had their first meeting in May. And I believe 12 of the 18 or 13 of the 18 showed up for a full day, 10 to 2, 10 to 3 experience. And a lot of connections were made, shared learning was happening. They were able to talk about the work they're doing, again, share the challenges and the successes that they're having. So, really bringing them together, we find that the more we bring individuals together, the stronger those relationships are building. And finally, we have learning sessions that we're doing every other month. Just to put a plug, the next one is the third Thursday. I may have that wrong. Please put in the chat the date, someone who knows it for sure. It's about belonging and civic muscle. We encourage everyone, all of the board members and guests on this call to attend. There is a registration for you to do. But through these peer learnings or the learning sessions, the topic is chosen. Veronica is looking at what she's wanting to convey during that meeting. And then she reaches out to the different partners within our network to ask them to talk about something very specific on their work that all ties together so that we can see how this work is being operationalized within our community. So we really do see the network moving beyond information sharing towards that genuine peer learning, which is very exciting. But at the same time, we see these conversations have revealed opportunities for us to improve. One of the themes that we consistently hear is that people understand the importance of the vital conditions and they buy into the framework and the upstream thinking, but many are still really struggling with what does it really look like in practice. So the shared learning is really helping with that. And we're creating some tools to help them really dig deeper in that. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought there. So we do have more and more organizations who, as they've signed on and said they would be partners, and they bought into adopted the framework and adopted the shared language. This is providing opportunity for individuals around our region, not just thriving together, to talk about this work and offer opportunities for engagement and collaboration. So one of the things as we continue to move this work forward, we're looking at obviously building relationships and connecting and really digging deeper, diving deeper, not just the surface of asking people to say, adopt this framework or share this about the framework, but really dig in deeper. But we're looking at what is going on nationally. We know that there's a movement right now from the Ripple Foundation to improve the well-being by 20 points in 10 years. And so we've had this question amongst ourselves, if we were to set a goal, would it really help our communities help move this forward and something that they can buy in together? The Ripple Foundation is calling it a great strive, and it's a very bold goal of moving the well-being score 20 points in 10 years. The narrative is at this point, I haven't seen the newest numbers. I'm not sure if they're released. If not, they'll be released any day now from Gallup, that only 48% of our population, meaning the nationally, is considered thriving. And are we okay with only 48% of our population thriving? So that number the newest number will be released soon. So that would be the same narrative that we would consider in our region if we choose to adopt a similar goal that we've proposed, which is the 20-point improvement over 10 years. And it's not really about the number. Should it be 20? Should it be 15? It's not about that. It's whether we as we believe that the network should set this ambitious, measurable goal for community well-being and then organize ourselves around achieving it. So as I've conducted one-on-one meetings with our Stewardship Council members over the last month and a half, it seems, I think I have 3 left, maybe 4. It seems there's a consensus that yes, that we should set some goal. This does not replace our commitment to all people, all places thriving, no exception. It just asks how we translate that commitment into a measurable progress. So with that, I would like to just open it up for board discussion to talk about, sorry, I'm trying to get my next one. Should the Vital Conditions Network establish a bold, measurable goal for community well-being that helps us track progress over time. So I've asked the Stewardship Council members, so now I just wanted to pose that question to our board. We can open this up for discussion. Don't be shy. Turn off mute.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
One yes.
I agree. This goes into the conversation that I think John had about getting participation and how do we measure our progress. And so if you don't have something set, how do you know if you're getting there?
Well, and I say yes because I think our county ranks 34 out of 36 of counties with the worst health outcomes. So, yeah, if we can set a goal and work towards that as a community, I think that would be great, or as a region.
Yeah. And as you know, we did the 2 years ago, 24, 25, yeah, 24, we did the well-being survey. And so we learned a lot through that. And we plan to launch it again in early 2027 so that we understand our regional. So then.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I do have lots of opinions about this. I agree that we should set an audacious goal. And I think we should have other goals around participation, representation, et cetera, because I don't think we really understand what it takes to move this number, because there are a lot of factors that are associated with it. And so I think it's good to have a goal out there. And I think in the interim, between now and the 10 years, I think hopefully we'll learn a lot about, what that number really means. Is it really representative of the communities we serve? Do we have equal participation by geography, by sector, by all the different factors that might influence that number? So I think we're going to learn a lot, and I agree that we should have a goal.
Thanks, Peter. John?
Yeah, I think the comments I was going to go, and this maybe goes a little bit off of what Peter said, is and I'm not going to ask the board multiple questions, but the things to think about a little bit is if we set this goal, what does it really mean as an organization? To Peter's point, it's in some ways we're setting a population level goal, which means we're trying to achieve this at a population level. Which means we have to potentially think about things a little bit differently. It's like, again, and this has been something we've bounced around a lot as an organization. We might invest in a lot of great projects, but in this space, you'd also want to know, are they the projects that are really making a difference towards well-being, or are there other things we need to focus on and invest in and be part of? Which I think is great, because I think we really want to see that in our community. And if we're really committed to well-being and the vital conditions, we need to head that direction. I just think it's also clear that we have to challenge ourselves that it's not just programmatically what we've done good for each program, but are those contributing to a broader mission and goal?
Is there a strong counter argument? Is there, like, what am I missing here?
Teresa?
Yeah, I think John, that and Wendy, that's kind of where my pause is of living in that world of being funded and then funds are taken away because our priorities have changed and unintended consequences to the community if we're going to wholeheartedly go in one way. How do we help those organizations that we've historically funded, to identify other funding sources? Because it's awful out there. So that is my only pause, kind of to Dylan's question, what are we missing is who's going to be the losers of this, of some of our current funding that we have going out.
Yeah, and I guess I don't see it necessarily as related to the funding. It's more about how are we looking at this work? We're not going to crisis our way out of the conditions that we're in. So how do we start to rethink our work? Because we use the vital conditions, how are we looking at solutions upstream through the lens of the vital conditions? How are we making these things a priority in the work that we're already doing with the funding that we already have? And how can we switch that? How can we change our language so that we're all talking about the same thing? How are we collaborating different and across sectors? And across the region and leverage the resources and expertise each of us already has. So that's kind of how we're looking at it as well.
Yeah, it's kind of comes back to connecting the dots because we're always in crisis. We always still have to respond to the crisis that's out there, but we're also trying to work ourselves out of a job. And so
yep.
We just never seem to work ourselves out of a job. And so that's where I think finding those opportunities elsewhere or partnering in a way just to ensure that those that are funded or you understand what I'm saying. It's just
I totally get it. And we're also looking at as we are identifying these upstream approaches and the work that wants that coalitions, collaboratives, cross-sector partners are looking at doing. As John mentioned earlier through Eddie, that granting, we're looking at other grant opportunities that are out there, and we're trying to make those connections too, so that not all the funding is thriving together. And if we can get away from governmental funding, that's even better because there's so much philanthropic funds out there. It's just about understanding where they're at and how do we tap into them and bring those funds into the region.
I think you make a great point, John. You can put your hand down now, John.
Oh, I have an additional comment.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
To speak.
You go first. I thought it was still up. Sorry.
No, I wanted to kind of, Teresa, to your point, a few things I wanted to say is I think there's one aspect as we're looking at how we support building capacity and support of organizations. There is this, as organizations are potentially transitioning off our funds, and this have come up in board meetings, can we support finding additional funding for those organizations? And we've started, our hope is that as we do some of this grant funding work with Eddie, that we will be able to transition to providing that service to organizations. We haven't really gotten that developed to the way we want that to, but ultimately, our goal is to support organizations transitioning to other funds versus just having a straight fiscal cliff. The other thing I was just going to note is that, even through all these conversations, if the healthcare authority comes back to us and says we are applying for another 1115 waiver and ACH is our part of this work, the likelihood is, unless the board really feels like we need to get out of that mix, we're still going to be intertwined in some of this other work as a whole too, just because of the nature of our relationship with the healthcare authority and our partners. So I don't think you can always fully see it as a complete cutoff, but for lack of better terms, our non-tied work that we're doing, the ability where we have our own direction and creation, this is where we can shift a larger focus of our efforts.
Thank you. Rena, did you have your hand up too, Rena?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna, it's great to set a bold, measurable goal for community well-being, but remember the climate that we're in too. We have cuts with HR1 coming and cuts that have already been made to every aspect of somebody's life: housing, healthcare, education, energy assistance, food. So we're setting these goals in a climate that we're, in social services, we think it's going to get worse, not better.
I definitely agree. The comment I was going to make earlier is that a comment you made, Wendy, about there's a lot more funding out there other than public funding. And I think that that's the part that really opens my eyes, because there's many organizations that care about well-being in the community, many foundations. And I think that tapping into some of that, and I've also learned through Eddie, through our Eddie system that we're working with on the education side, that there's so many foundations out there that want to support organizations, and definitely well-being is at the center of it. a lot of what we see is that the well-being is at the center of it all. And then the other thing, I was in a meeting earlier today to kind of agree with Rena a little bit, where the governor's office, OFM, sent a letter to all the state departments about cuts, more cuts. I think that, and it's going to be, if this session was challenging, this last session, the next session is going to be twice as challenging, because I think we're starting to feel that effect of that COVID cliff. The state is really trying to look at pre-COVID and where the budgets were and why they grew so much. So I think that, it's kind of keeping that in mind as we set goals. A goal might be a good. How bold? I think that's where the discussion should lie a lot of. So.
Well, and we've had the same word that we're going to go back, all of our funding is going to go back to pre-COVID levels. And of course, our community hasn't even gotten over COVID yet. And we did, we had the DSHS new secretary here a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the SNAP work and volunteer requirements. And they're estimating 3,000 people in Okanagan County alone would lose their SNAP benefits. And we don't have that many jobs or volunteer opportunities. So what's going to happen is people are going to lose their benefits.
Yep. It's definitely things to consider as we move forward. Wendy?
Yeah, I think this is where Peter was taking over. This is, yeah?
Yeah, so we have another question. So this is a question I think I raised for myself when we were at the retreat, and that's what's the role, what can the board do as ambassadors? And this is, when I say the board, I mean the board writ large, but also each of us as individuals in helping the network build momentum. And if we're serious about the stewardship role and so forth, what is our role? What can we as board members or the board as a whole do to to raise awareness, to enhance this effort? So I'd love to hear people's thoughts, on this. And when I say this is because I'm asking this question of myself and my community. What can I do? What should I do? How visible can I be? How much can I support what the staff is doing? And I'm curious if people have thoughts about that, how they drive this, not just in their own organizations, because a lot of you represent organizations, but also in the broader communities that you represent. Don't everybody speak at once, all right? Thoughts?
I know what I'm doing, so I'll speak to that. I mean, especially during off session, and especially now that is many of our legislators are getting reelected or elected, this is the time, for me to really go out there, and I've been very proactive. The other part that I think where I'm getting serious is to sort of connect everything that I'm doing in Save Human Services, the campaign for 20 used to be the campaign for 20, who's also putting out legislative messaging around how underfunded nonprofits are, especially the social service nonprofits, and how they're in danger of being extinct. I think that I think that more of what I need to do is be more intentional and deliberate about connecting a lot of what we're doing in the education arena that I'm in as it connects, because every student that we see in the 20 schools we're in, and we're increasing the schools that we're in, the majority of what we're doing has components that connect with your nonprofits and with social services in the communities. Food scarcity, basic needs, behavior issues with families engaging in healthcare systems. All of that connects, so for me, it's continuing to connect in a bit more of an intentional way, not only with the legislators, and knowing that, but being meaningful about engaging them as we did during session. But an off session is when a lot of this work was September is when the budgets are going to start being proposed from the different departments. So right now is the time to talk to these departments and to, like you were mentioning, DSHS and others. So it's just being a little more intentional and and how to connect more with for me, as an entity and as an individual, how to connect more intentionally with the Shires.
So others, Ruben and Ryan, you're out there, right? You're my other fellow Chai representatives.
We are out here, yes, Peter. I was staying quiet because I was one of Wendy's interviewees, so I figured that I would let other people share their thoughts. But I think similar to what Emilio said, and I think this is what I said when I talked to Wendy. I tend to ramble when I get with Wendy in the book or Annie Freda, but I think really just something that I think is really helpful, and also I find really helpful in my other hat with my main organization at the EDC is just people like board members who are consistently thinking with all of their hats on, I think is really important. Sometimes it seems like a no-brainer of how could you not make this connection with this person, or like just recently I was having a conversation with an EDC board member at a board retreat and was able to connect his organization with the Vital Conditions Network and Veronica and get them involved just because of a conversation we had, and it just made sense. It made no sense not to make that connection, right? So I feel like one of the easiest things that you can do is just like consistently think with all of your hats. And I know that all of you wear many, many hats across many different sectors, I'm sure. But that at the bare minimum, I think is something that takes minimal effort. And is super easy, even if it's just a simple like I'm going to introduce you to Wendy or I'm going to introduce you to Veronica and they can further connect you. I think that's the best way that you can go about it, in just a very minimal, doesn't add anything else to your plate type of way outside of just your responsibility to steward for the board. So that would be my answer.
Thanks, Ryan. That's really helpful.
One of
I'm
the things.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
can you
Go
hear
ahead,
me?
yeah, go ahead,
Sorry.
Ruben.
Okay. Is the common language that we're using, I've been using meaningful work a lot more than I did before I learned about the seven vital conditions, humane housing. And like Ryan was saying, we wear a lot of different hats. And so I think we can always kind of pull from the people in our communities and get them connected. So today I was on a conversation. Sorry, I'm outside at my house and a rooster's right next to me. Um, they we talked about farmers markets today, and we're getting connected with different people from, the Upper Valley down to Douglas County to talk about some of these things. But hosting is a big part of that. Sometimes a lot of the organizations or the smaller groups of people who are working on some of these initiatives need someone to connect them, put a meeting together, kind of give the reason why you should be there or what's going to happen if you miss out. And so I found that very helpful for my part is showing up to something that maybe takes a little bit of extra effort to do those warm handoffs with different people so that they feel comfortable because they know that I'm going to be there with them, or that this is something within their work that they're going to be able to speak about when they go to this meeting with other strangers that they, maybe aren't comfortable with, but they have an ally in the room, somebody who is working alongside them with this work. And so, we're just hitting off our food council for Chelan Douglas again after taking a small hiatus. And what we really saw a lot in that room was just a lot of new faces who are coming together and still are learning a little bit about the common language that we're using around seven vital conditions. And so I've been using a lot of these convenings to continue to use language that we're hoping to promote, and so people can acknowledge that there's things that are tied together: humane housing and meaningful work and natural thriving world. You can find a solution to all three of those things somehow in in a farmer's life, right? And giving them the space of a farmer's market to then sell their wares. So I think that's kind of how I've been doing it. And I know that both Rachel and Maggie are great connectors and great facilitators. And so I think we've been leaning a lot into that part of the work that we do, is hosting, facilitating, and using common language.
Thanks, Ruben. You're the consummate connector, and that's a big part of it. Is bringing people into the same room. Other thoughts?
I guess from a practical standpoint, I'm curious from the board members of, are you able to articulate the 7 vital conditions and what they are and talk fluently? And if not, what tools or resources do you need that we could help you be able to talk about this? I just think if it's part of our strategic priorities and as board members, it feels like you should be able to talk about this fluently. And if you're not able to, how can we support you in being able to do that?
Wendy.
Go ahead.
Wendy, I'll dive in on that one. I may have to disappear here shortly, but I can speak to the vital conditions and know what they are. Um, the broader issue for me is how does that really meaningful to their work? So I have an example where I did recently, Wendy, where there's an organization in my community that's all about thriving natural environment, and they I could articulate to them how they contribute to this, but why they would want to be part of a broader health mission when they're all about the environment, and enlisting them in this broader connection to all the other vital conditions. That's more of a conversation, and it really has to tie to their mission somehow. Anyway, I think I would benefit a lot by attending the learning sessions and seeing how other network members and partners connect with each other, and what are the connections they make to other vital conditions, so that whole picture starts to get cemented in their mind.
Peter, I see it a little bit as kind of like, when kids are together, kindergartners and first graders and second graders, they kind of learn from each other a lot. And I find that if I come in as like a teacher saying, hey, this is all the information that you should have, they can get the information, but it's like, well, I don't really see how it works. It's when they're playing in the sandbox with other people, thinking about how do we improve food access in our community through these food pantries, and you just popcorn around the room and all these people start having ideas and start writing it down. That open space just gives them the opportunity to kind of play for a little bit in the playground of the work that they're doing, which I don't think in our everyday lives we spend a lot of time doing that, right? We have tasks, we got check boxes we got to mark off, but if someone can give us the space with other people to be creative and think out loud, I think that's the beauty of providing some of the framework of the conversation, but getting those people together to imagine and be creative.
I would piggyback too off of what Ruben said. Some of the things I talked with Wendy about as a part of the stewardship council conversations was, I think a lot of people understand the basics of the vital conditions and what they are and why they're important, but then the what's next part is a little bit difficult. Like, how do I apply this? How do I embed this in my day-to-day operations? Can be a little bit difficult to imagine. I think for some people, but similar to what Ruben said, I think even just being at the last in-person peer gathering for the Vital Conditions grants, there were lots of really good concrete examples that people gave, that grant recipients gave on how they've been implementing the Vital Conditions in their day-to-day operations that I think was super helpful. And again, just to be there listening in the room to the creative ways that people have done this, not only helps for other organizations not to have to reinvent the wheel, but also just makes it a lot more tangible and like, oh, this isn't so like far-fetched and crazy to imagine at our smaller organization or our resources constrained organization that we could be able to do this too in a practical way.
John?
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe pose a little bit of a question because I'm hearing most of the conversation come through Peter, Ryan, and Ruben, which isn't surprising, right? Because you all kind of, through the nature of the work and involvement in the coalitions you're all doing, kind of live and breathe this to a degree that's just different than other board members. So you also have a little bit of an unfair advantage. But I'd be curious for those that aren't as involved in some of this network work. I'm starting to think a little bit in my mind is as you've heard and listened to the work around the Vital Conditions Network and really this movement toward well-being. One, are you guys physically seeing that in your day-to-day feel like it has this? I know we're working on measurement, but I'll say in an abstract way, it's making a market difference in the conversations and the spaces you're operating in. Or do you feel for some reason that there's a disconnect between what you're doing in your day-to-day aspects, including as a board and a board ambassador, and the work we're doing with the network, and what could be done differently to promote this work more or encourage this work more in your spaces?
I guess this is where I go as the new board member. I've been quiet because I'm still nervous around you guys. Anyways, I think for me, I'm hitting a wall here because I'm trying to understand still what has been done by Thriving Northwest in the past. So I'm still wrapping my head around that. But I think for me, someone who is a chief at the hospital as well as a hospitalist and trying to provide care and get patients to the resources they need, I understand the vital capacity, but I struggle a lot of times because I'm trying to keep the hospital open, trying to keep us financially solvent, trying to do some of these things and get my patients and the community members engaged with some of these things. But we hit a lot of roadblocks, and we've already heard in here HR1's coming. We're trying to position the hospital so that when these cuts hit on January 1, we're not as vulnerable as we are currently. And then stepping into some of these things. So like reliable transportation. It's an issue. It's plaguing us. It's been plaguing us for multiple years. I don't see real movement on it other than I have people to rely on over here. And that's the extent of it. So I kind of see those things. So those are some of the things I'm kind of struggling around, trying to connect. I've seen, like when it comes to lifelong learning, when I look at the State College Board of Technical Colleges, I don't see good movement from them at helping my employees engage and get educated. I don't see them reaching out very well into the community to help adults do schooling on time that isn't between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So I see a lot of these obstacles in our area, and I don't see movement on them as someone who is trying to it would benefit from some of these things.
Thanks, Ben. Others who haven't spoken up yet?
This is Dell. I was late to the conversation, so I apologize for that. A lot of this work we're doing throughout the day, whether it's within the way that we run programs or operationally. And so I think the challenge, going back to some of your presentation, is how do we measure that as a system? Because I think there's a lot of us that are working on these on an individual basis, that whether we're doing it in our treatment planning or we're doing it as we partner with resources across our communities, but we don't have a real way to measure as a region or measure as a system that these areas are improving for vital conditions and the work that we've done. And so I think that that's where the challenge is, of trying to find a way to connect all the different resources and organizations to find ways that we can actually measure that we're improving the vital conditions of our area. So that's really my only comment, is trying to find a way how we can measure the work that we're all doing.
So I got to run, but this conversation should roll as long as it can. I'll just say that, back to Ruben's comment about the kindergarten, is that I think for me, I want to spend more time with people in the community that are engaged in this and just ask a lot of questions of them. So how do you relate to this? Do you understand this framework? How do you contribute to it? I want to ask a lot of questions to see what the response is from the community, because we are learning. There's not a lot of there are not a lot of role models out there in the nation that are doing this. There's no blueprint that says this is how you implement and measure and be successful with the vital conditions. So we're on a learning curve, and I think for me it's learning with the people in my community and figuring out what's meaningful to them and what's not, and what our interventions going forward might be to make it more meaningful and more effective. So with that, I have to pick up a passenger here and move on. But thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. I'm looking at the time here. We're like right on schedule at this point and getting close to a break. Wendy, do you need more time, or are we?
Only if other board members have anything else to say. Otherwise, I can wrap up if we're at time.
Teresa, could you expand on your comment in the chat?
Oh, as the others were talking, Dell in particular, talking about finding some key measurements that then we can report on. We're dealing with this with our CHIP, our health improvement plan. And how do you measure activities that others are doing? Because I think a lot of times we see what Thriving Together has invested in or those activities, but to the point of the bigger conversation is there are activities happening all across the region. And just being able to find some key measurements that we can track over time, prioritizing it based on some of the conversations we've had today, and then seeing how we are doing in meeting those metrics. Could help where we have crisis, that we might have a program that's in trouble and that could impact a community. So it's also not just the successes of the programs, but where there are areas that needing help. And we don't know that if we're not looking beyond the walls of our own organization or Thriving Together. But it's hard to collect. I mean, how right? I mean, we're always asking our partners to give us this data, even though we're not funding them to do the work. So if you guys find that secret sauce, I would really benefit from that.
Thank you, Teresa. One on the comments, Dylan made a very good comment. Next time, with big ticket, with big ticket, fantastic questions like these, would you consider emailing them to us earlier in the day of the meeting? I think it's good. I learned that from Rosalinda. When you ask a question, send it when you want to ask questions and engage in a conversation about it, send them in advance. I do that with my board, send them a question in advance, kind of give us time to kind of ponder on it and be a little bit more engaged in that discussion. Does that make the good point, Dylan? Thank you.
Yeah, and not to throw out another big question, but something to think about, and I can follow up with a few board members on this too, is like, and we've talked about a little bit, again, we have learning sessions, we have the summit, and we'd love to see board members at that, but then to kind of Teresa's point, the secret is not necessarily always coming in to our program and our work, but then turning around and figuring out how we can support growing this kind of network and movement outside. So then in some ways to board members too, it's like, I want to figure out in your day-to-day, where is the need for supports to leverage some of this in the work you guys do. I think of whether it's through, to Ben's point, when he's operating individuals in crisis, like sometimes you have to come here as a board member and then turn around and do your day-to-day job, which is sometimes all encompassing in itself. So how do we turn around and figure out how we support you all in this space as well when you're in your day-to-day regular workspaces as well?
Thank you. Anything else on this subject? Wendy?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that puts us at, should we take a 5-minute break or we want to power through? I think we're doing 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
All right, 5-minute break, 3:53. Let's get back at 3:58. Thank you. Now we're, there you go, thank you. Okay, Manuel, the floor is yours.
All right. All right. Welcome back from break, everyone. So moving on into the agenda, just a report from the governance committee. Over the last couple of months, as standard, the governance committee has reviewed the bylaws and made any adjustments or edits. These are typically minor unless something really big comes up. But the red line version has been sent out to each of you for review. Again, just really some minor edits, changes, and but in addition to the bylaws, the governance committee also took a quick look at the code of conduct and conflict of interest form. And so that was also sent out. So we have in front of us in the packet a kind of a slate, if you will, to propose to approve the edits to the bylaws and the code of conduct as presented by the governance committee. So I will, unless there's, I'll open it up for questions. If there are none, I'll open the floor for the motion.
Is there a motion to approve the changes upon review?
And just a quick note that the bylaws were sent out separately this morning because the red line version didn't get in the packet.
Oh.
So
Thank you. I thought I was, because I only saw
thought I
two
saw
red lines.
yeah, for
I thought I
some
s-
reason when I uploaded it, it did not include the red lines. So
Yeah.
Okay, because the only red line I saw was on the code of conduct.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Well, the changes are so minimal, I didn't think that there would be anything. So, okay.
would you mind kind of pointing out what the changes are?
I don't have the red line in front of me now that I'm looking through the packet.
just a second, I'll pull it up and I
Thanks.
can. Yeah.
Thank you.
And just as an FYI, while Teresa does that, it's it's protocol to review all these policies on a routine basis. So there wasn't anything necessary that triggered this review, except that it was time to do the review.
Okay.
Okay. Me.
I have it pulled up,
Oh,
Teresa.
no, I'm sharing right now.
Okay.
So, okay. So, it was basically we had our old mission still in there. So we put the new mission in
Are you
there.
sharing your screen, Teresa? Because
Yeah,
I'm not
is it
seeing
not
anything.
showing? Oh, I was. Let me try that again. Let's see. Okay, now do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But now I see it.
Okay. So it was, well, now,
I want to make it a little bit bigger.
let's see. Is that better?
Thank
Okay.
you.
So basically we had the old mission still in there, so we updated that. And then somebody had said act as an advocate instead of liaison. They're just very minor. We no longer have a administrative or backbone organization. We're our own organization. And then correction on a insurer versus insure.
Yeah. Language.
But I think that was.
I think that was it.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
it,
that was
Teresa.
it. Yeah.
So, you know, as
Oh,
you
wait,
can,
right here. Finance. And I think that just had to do with also we didn't have to say it's anticipated anymore. So we were just saying will be a standalone. I think that's it now.
okay.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, there was really no substantive changes to the bylaws. It was really more editing to bring it up to date in context, like the financing, and just some other minor changes. But definitely understand if, you know, bylaws are important and part of organizations where you don't allow bylaw changes unless the changes are put out, you know, 60 days in advance for review. But in light of the minor changes, I feel comfortable presenting this to the board and will accept a motion for approval. This is a tough Monday.
Motion to
This is
approve.
Ray. This is Ray. I make a motion.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, second.
I know you wanted to, Ben.
Manuel, can I ask just a point of clarification? Were you asking for both of those or just?
No, I'm going to pull them out separately now. We'll do
Okay,
it. Just
perfect.
the bylaws.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
You have second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Additional questions, comments?
This is Dell. Just a quick question. In there, I'm fine with it being approved. I just wanted to double check. There's NCACH mentioned quite a bit. Was there going to be a change for NCACH to Thriving Together NCW?
It's still
No,
a legal name.
we reviewed that, and our official charter is, you know, it's Thriving North Central Washington, doing business as, or whatever. So our official name has not changed, and we didn't want to change our official name.
Terrific. I'm in the same boat as an organization, so I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, or the legal name is the NCACH. Yeah.
We
Any
didn't
other-
want to have to change all the hats.
Any other questions, comments? All right, without hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up. Thank you. Any opposed? None. Abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion carries. Approved.
All right, and then the other part, then I know I kind of contradicted myself. I was going to do them both at once, but then we'll go out. The other part is the changes that the governance committee is making, recommending for the code of conduct and in the conflict of interest statement. I just lost it. What is that, page 40 something? All right. And that one did have the red line in it, so you should have had a chance to review and see what the changes were. And again, very minimal. It was just the one line, number 3, to kind of pull it out. And so I'll take a motion to open the floor for a motion to accept the changes as presented by the governance committee to the code of conduct policy.
This is Nikki on motion.
Thank you, Nikki. Second?
This is Dell. I'll second.
Thank you, Dell.
And this discussion, questions?
Just,
Hearing none.
just,
Go ahead.
it was pulled out because it's implied in our mission and vision. And so some of this discussion came up again to the tweak of the mission statement. And so we felt it was implied and just easier to pull it out.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the motion, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, motion carries.
All right, and that's all I have from the exciting world of governance for you.
You have two more things.
Ah, you're right. I just went back up to the front.
Thank you. I was just about to say that.
Document retention policy.
Yes.
The operations, Kristen had worked on a document retention policy, and we reviewed that. So presenting to approve and adopt from the board. So, these, I think, Emilio, I'm kind of like you. Most of these things coming from committee should already come with the motion and second.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go with that on this. So this is coming from the governance committee with a motion and second. So we'll just open it up to discussion and questions before we take the vote.
Thank you. Any discussion, any questions? Comments on this very exciting subject? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye or thumbs up. Okay, any opposed? See none. Any abstentions? See none. All right, motion carries.
And then as the last thing then is, as part of the governance committee, we review and update our committee membership. And so Melody Johnson we discussed her movement and election to the finance committee, and it's coming forward to the full board for approval with a motion and a second from the committee. So any questions on that?
All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Excellent. She's been approved.
All right, now I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Caroline Tillier with North Central Community Care Hub update.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I have you at the end of the day, so hopefully you're still hanging in there. And I wanted to provide another update. The last update you heard was at our February meeting, and I have a few slides for you. And then I also wanted to kind of go over one of the documents we included in the packet, and then just open it up for questions to see what, if anything, folks are wondering about when it comes to the hub work. So I'll go ahead and share my screen real quick in a second. Okay. So since our meeting in February, it was great to see many of you at the Hope Dealers documentary screening. And I just wanted to underscore that the recovery coaching workforce that many of you learned about in the documentary is part of our community care hub workforce. And it's a network we've been building for a long time that pre-existed the waiver, and we're really glad to be able to leverage their leadership, their lived experience in service of community members through the waiver. So another thing that I wanted to mention is some workforce development planning that we've been doing with Action Health Partners and Advance, and specifically their workforce development staff. We're really trying to align some supports where we can across programs. So regardless of whether you work under as a recovery coach or under the Community Connect program or the Health Home program, there's some foundational skills and just kind of learning sessions that we can put on for anybody in the network. So we just launched some lunch and learns, what we're calling them lunch and learns, or once a month, really informal. People can join with the lunches, be off camera, and we're picking a topic or a specific resource that we want our care coordinators to learn more about so that they can make effective referrals across the network. The first one that we covered last month was actually MCO care management. The state is really paying attention to referrals between the hubs and MCOs. So we're trying to make sure that our care coordinators understand what MCO care managers do and how to refer out to them. And then MCOs are doing their part to make sure their care managers know about the hub and send referrals our way when they're not able to provide supports. Last but not least, when I last met in February, I said that we're going to be working really hard for 3 months on IT development and launching with the Connect to Coordinator platform at AHP. And we did it! It happened. It was not delayed. It was a bear, but we made it. And Rena, I remember when I talked to you once, you were like, 3 months, there's no way that can happen. And it was bumpy. And it's still not perfect, but man, we did it. And Advance also launched their own platform. Right now, it's only operational internally at Advance, but then their plan is to make it available to Cafe and then the other agencies they bring on into the network. So lots happened and things are moving on. I also mentioned last time that we were pulling together a report for the Healthcare Authority. So I've brought some of that data to you today. Just remember that the systems we were working with were imperfect in terms of documentation or like helping us count what we needed to count. But I'm presenting you the data anyway, because even if it's imperfect, it's giving us a good sense of what's going on. So you can see this is data for the October to December quarter. This is waiver data only, so it did not include health home counts or RNP counts. And you can see that in that quarter, we received 400, just upwards of 400 referrals. The total number of enrolled clients, including the ones that carried over from prior quarters, was 627. Over 80% of enrolled clients have a health-related social needs assessment completed. That's the assessment that informs the care plan or the support plan for the client. We are still only at 8 contracted care coordination agencies in the network. That's going to start to grow starting in July. And then you can also see the counts for our community-based workforce. So while there's 36 staff employed or contracted by head count, they're not all carrying a 1 FTE caseload. So the effective FTE is 24 across our network for the waiver work. So I'll pause there just to see if there's questions about these metrics. We submit more data to the Healthcare Authority, but these are some of the kind of basic metrics that all hubs collect. And any questions? I think it might be the first time we've actually brought data to you all. And I really hope that we're going to start to do this more and more now that we have systems that work. If your IT systems make it impossible for you to export data, it's really hard to share out. So the good news is there's improvements there. A few demographics for the 627 clients we serve. you'll see these quick bar charts showing you race and ethnicity breakdown, age groups, gender, geography. These are based on the categories we report up to the HCA. We break things out even further, but these are the groupings for the HCA. And I'll point out that under geography, there's some historical data that was counted together as Chelan Douglas, so we're not able to pull out which one was Chelan, which one was Douglas, but going forward, we'll be having all that data split out by county cleanly. And I know it's tiny, so apologies. I can see Emilio leaning in. Some counts on the outbound referral data. So these are some metrics that the healthcare authority is really paying attention to. Social barriers that we're making referrals for on behalf of clients, health barriers. Not surprisingly, and this kind of relates to the vital conditions conversation you all had earlier, a lot of needs are around employment, food access, transportation, housing, all things that are going to become potentially harder. On the right-hand side, you can also see that a lot of the connections that our care coordinators are helping with are health insurance access. So it kind of relates to the HR1 conversation that John mentioned earlier. Referring out to people who help with health insurance navigation is probably going to increase as some outbound referrals in the coming year when things go live in January 2027. Questions about the data before I move on to the next slide?
Only one comment about the data. Because we have one care coordinator and in the transfer from the old system to the new system, we definitely have identified, and after meeting with Cami, with Cami and Peter on our numbers, we realized we had underreported or undercounted. So we are in the process of correcting that. Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow, so the numbers will be even greater.
That's awesome, and I know that kind of increasing the quality of documentation is something that AHP and Advanced are going to pay attention to with their network. So how do we provide, it relates to workforce development, right? How do you provide ongoing support for care coordinators to make sure that they are documenting adequately so that they get credit for the work that they're doing, right? If it's not in there, according to the HCA, it doesn't exist. So there's definitely some work we have to do, and you're not alone, Emilio. That's, I think, something that we need to tend to across the network. Ray, I did want to give Lake Chelan, is Ray still on? Maybe not.
I didn't see him.
Okay. When I was doing some data validation as part of the migration, they are doing really great work with helping people connect to health insurance up at Lake Chelan Health with their community-based workers. And yeah, they seem to be really have it dialed in. And I don't know if that's coming from like a clinical setting where you guys are all much more used to documentation, I feel like from the start, or what it is, but kudos to Ray's team. So looking ahead, we're moving to client level reporting to the healthcare authority. So for the past 2 years, we've been submitting quarterly aggregate data. And starting in July, we're moving into client level, more like encounter-based data reporting, and it's going to be monthly. So we're working on getting ready for that switch in June and July with our first report due in August. And again, this is where having platforms that allow you to pull out seamlessly what you need is going to be really critical. And I'm feeling much more confident now that we're off of VisionLink and now that Advance is up and running. It also means that the only data we're going to be submitting are data where we've confirmed that someone had a P1 ID. And that is going to be, I just want to flag for the board that it's probably going to show a drop in clients reported. Doesn't mean we've served fewer clients. It means we're reporting fewer clients. Because in prior months, HCA was just asking us to provide numbers on referrals and numbers served, but they hadn't yet given us a mechanism to check Medicaid eligibility and status. That went into play in the fall. And it's been like we've been kind of catching up on pulling that data together, and then going forward in the client level reporting, we're only reporting folks who are Medicaid eligible. So we do, looking at the historical data, we do serve people who are on Medicare. We serve people who are uninsured. We're trying to really maintain that no wrong door, like, yes, we will help you if you need supports. It's not insurance based, but I think it's something we're definitely going to have to watch since, you know, a bulk of our funds is coming through the Medicaid waiver. We really are going to have to show that a majority of the work is for Medicaid clients. And if it's not, we're going to have to go after additional revenue to help shore up and support that work with non-Medicaid clients. And so that's where leveraging Eddie and also going after probably, I mean, it could be philanthropic, but I would say there's probably more government kind of federal funds that could support the work, especially with some of the attention there is around reentry and recovery supports. So that's definitely something we're going to be looking into. Action Health Partners is working on contract renewals starting in July for the Community Connect program. So those of you who are involved in that program, I'm sure you've had a conversation with AHP. They're clarifying key performance indicators and expectations moving forward. And we're really trying to like get the whole network to be high performing. And for those who are struggling a little bit, we're going to do what we can to support them so that they're high performing as well. But we're going to have more data that we're looking at more frequently so that people aren't surprised, and then so that everybody can help us manage the work and perform. The network growth is another thing that's like when we look ahead to DY9, so demonstration year 9, it's basically July 26 to June 27. That means we're entering into the 4th year of the waiver. I can't believe I'm saying that. At the same time, I can, because it's felt very long. But we're really going to have to focus on network growth. So adding contracted partners, right? So we've been in like an investment mode where we've been shoring up our hub partners and growing our network. But we've done a lot of capacity building with Action Health Partners in advance. And I think at a high level for the board, what I want you to know or understand is that we're going to start to shift towards maintaining the hub infrastructure, but then starting to really focus on expanding our network, increasing our number of referrals, which might require additional outreach and marketing and communications. We're really going to need to get those numbers up. I would say that looking at the volume of clients we've served so far, it needs to be much more given the investments. And so that's what we're going to focus on this coming year. And to do that, we're launching into the demonstration year 11, the 4th year of the waiver, with a couple full-day strategic planning retreats with the Advance and Action Health Partners leadership. And we're going to do some joint planning. We're going to dig a whole day into the financial sustainability of like where we are right now and where we need to get things so that they are more sustainable. And we're actually going to engage, and John, feel free to chime in here, but I wanted to call out that we're going to be getting some support from the Rural Health Redesign Center that's doing some work with us already. And they're going to be helping us come up with a comprehensive cost and financial analysis for our hub, and specifically kind of helping us think through, you know, we started doing some analysis around the true hub costs, but there's further work we need to do around our model. Like we have a distributed model, and right now we haven't incorporated the numbers from the other programs under the model. So we're kind of we're inflating the cost per client right now because we're not looking at everything under our hub infrastructure. So we're going to take a more holistic look. do some kind of, they're going to help us with economics and financial gap analysis, and make some recommendations like sustainability scenarios for us to grapple with. So when we have those, you can be confident that we'll be bringing those to you for some input, and we'll also be bringing them to our CBCC, our Community-Based Care Coordination Advisory Committee. So lots of exciting work ahead, and going to keep rolling up our sleeves. And last but not least, I did want the board to see at a high level. In February, I mentioned that the Healthcare Authority had required us to come up with an application process to disburse some of the infrastructure capacity building funds. And I wanted to share with you the MOUs that we have in place after receiving applications to date. So we have one with Grant County Health District. And they're not all the same time period. Some of them are 2-year MOUs. Some of them are just partial part of the year. We wanted to keep it very flexible. So Grant County Health District, Cafe, WA 211, and the Tech Alliance all have MOUs using the infrastructure supports. And then we also got a few more recently. Lake Wenatchee Fire and Rescue, Advance, they're helping with our resource directory efforts, and then Rural Resources most recently. And their MOU is specific to the FCS program, Foundational Community Supports, and shoring up some of those policies and procedures and tech investments. So I will make sure you get these slides after the meeting. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and wanted to remind you in the packet on page 65, I think it is, we included an overview summary of some of the investments we're making in the workforce, and specifically the recovery coaching workforce. And this is a little bit in response to a comment that Linda made actually at the documentary screening. I think anybody who was there realized that work can be really heavy for the workforce. And so the question is how do we take care of the workforce? Like we're trying to help people on the ground, but how do we make sure it's not at the expense of the people, the helpers? And so what you see in your packet, we wanted to kind of make sure you are aware of some of the investments that are going on in the background with support from Teresa Pasaconi. And she's been piloting a whole curriculum with the recovery coaches at Advance. So kudos to Advance for kind of leading in this way and having the courage to kind of tend to a vulnerable workforce, and leaning into modules that cover navigating stress, healthy teamwork, navigating grief and loss, and traumatic experiences, addressing secondary traumatic stress, boundary setting, all things that we knew were a challenge for peer workforces. And so far have been getting really great feedback from Advance. And Teresa's already she's reached out to Catholic Charities and Cafe to start this kind of support. And we're kind of learning as we do and fine-tuning and hoping to make it available to more of our partner agencies in the network. So I will stop there and see if there's any questions.
Can I add a few quick comments?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to note a few things. As Caroline said, we're really trying to get this to a level and a capacity that we're serving the appropriate number of clients. So that's why you're still seeing this kind of continue ramp up and growth. What I would say is Healthcare Authority has expressed interest to try to figure out how we make this work sustainable. We don't know what that all means, but Director Moran has typically made the comment that they want to see us bolted into the system, is what he said. And so how we are part of the system to support Medicaid individuals in Washington State they're gonna have to they're gonna try to figure that out. He also, the other comment, to be honest, if the waiver doesn't continue, he has made the comment that it doesn't mean it can lead to increased Medicaid spending in the state. So the assumption is that it would lead to some form of contracting, either with managed care organizations or healthcare authority directly, and that the funding would have to be balanced out at some point in time. The state has started engaging in waiver renewal conversations too. And so there are components of the waiver that might be able to be continued. I don't think the broader work of the community care hub will be continued, at least in the short term. And so we are anticipating the waiver ends June 2028. Right now, we're estimating that we can fully fund this work through the end of 2028, but that we're also going to have to, over the next 2.5 years, figure out that sustainability strategy, which is also part of what we want to do with the Rural Health Redesign Center, is especially since we really, our model has included on how do we build infrastructure to support multiple care coordination programs in North Central Washington. How do we get a true understanding of that value? And amongst our three agencies, right, we want that to incorporate the Health Pumps program, the Recovery Navigator program. We'd want to be able to create space to look at what are other opportunities for other partners to tap into this resource as well with the programs that they serve, that we could make this a sustainable effort in North Central Washington. So the work we're asking the Rural Health Redesign Center to do is also go above and beyond just the waiver evaluation and look at this infrastructure for care coordination in North Central Washington.
Thank you, John. Caroline, anything else?
Nope, I am done.
All right. Well, anything, I'll just make one comment about the whole recovery navigators. And I had the privilege of having lunch with Joey, and I'm pretty invested in this community when it comes to that. I think that what's happening in North Central Washington around recovery is very unique. And I worked at DBHR, and I worked at, statewide with these systems, and I'm I'm proud to say that in this community, people, because it's a battle out there in recovery. I mean, I see it a lot. So I appreciate the investments and what we're doing around this. I'm very, very grateful for that. So thank you. Kudos to you, Caroline and Joey, and the staff for doing all the work that you're doing and supporting the system. So, all right. Well, we're at that part of the meeting. Any other thoughts, comments around Caroline's presentation? Okay, if not, then we're at the final thoughts part of the meeting. This is where you all, share your wisdom with everybody else about the last 3 hours almost. Everybody's smiling. Go. Okay. All right. Well, hearing none, I don't need a motion to adjourn. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Right
you all.
on time or early, Emilio. So
Hey, you owe me lunch.
thank you all.